Hello, friends. In this video, I will explain why I don't like traveling to different countries as a tourist. Along the way, we will talk about the accumulation of impressions in a philosophical sense, from the point of view of a rational person. It is no secret that there are people who say something like this: I invest all my free money, resources only in impressions, in travel, in trips to different countries of the world. Usually, we all envy famous travel bloggers. It takes your breath away when you imagine how many countries they have managed to visit. This is perceived as almost a synonym for human happiness, success, a measure of the success of a person's life. To visit different countries, to travel as a tourist is the ultimate dream of any girl and any young guy. If the latter promises her such a life, endless travel, adventures, trips, then he will be able to win her heart without difficulty. When I was young and stupid, I reasoned in much the same way as these young people. Since childhood, we have been forced by aggressive marketing to accept a simple idea: only by traveling can you find true happiness in life. As soon as people became richer and had the opportunity to fly on airplanes, visit various exotic countries, it began to seem to us, here it is, unlimited happiness and absolute freedom. In my youth, I also flew on airplanes many times. I was in various European and Asian countries. But every time I see another passenger airliner burning during landing or takeoff, or, as recently happened in the USA, when a passenger plane collided with a military helicopter and no one survived, imagining people writhing in hellish flames or drowning in the sea, a simple question arises: guys, did you really need it so badly, to fly to this or that faraway America, Venezuela, or Bangladesh? No, I fully understand the need for transport as such. When a person moves far away for work or study, goes into exile, when people flee their country in search of a better life, this is completely justified. But for the vast majority of passengers, all these flights are, by and large, an absolute whim. A whim, a random caprice. The vast majority fly to Delhi or Bangladesh solely for the sake of rest, for a change of scenery, for entertainment, to unwind on vacation, to recharge with new impressions and emotions, in all these distant exotic countries. And for this purpose, people take a small risk of burning alive in a tin can called a passenger plane. For the sake of entertainment, we are ready to risk the most valuable thing, our lives, health and the lives of our loved ones. And again I want to ask a philosophical question: did you really need it so much? You will say, well, all these disasters, including those involving airplanes, are just a drop in the ocean. And in general, an airplane is one of the safest modes of transport according to statistics. Disasters happen extremely rarely, but they still happen. Agree that all the other troubles that can happen to you happen not so rarely. How we want to jump off a cliff on a special rubber band, descend to the deep sea bottom to examine, for example, the sunken Titanic. How we want to swim in Egypt next to sharks or taste a raw exotic dish in a distant country. All accidents happen much more often with foreign tourists than with local residents. For one simple reason: in your home country you know where and when you can go, you know all the laws, the mentality of the people around you, safe and dangerous places. You don't stand out in the crowd like a peacock with bright feathers. Coming to an exotic market in some conventional Bangladesh, you seem to shout to those around you: I have white skin, deceive me, rob me, sell me twice as expensive as the locals. Everyone around you knows that you have about $1,000 in cash with you, the money you take with you on holiday, while locals may never earn that amount in a year of their lives. For them, you are like a red rag to a bull. What can you compare it to? Well, if a girl puts on a revealing outfit or walks along the streets in a swimsuit in some Orthodox Islamic country, how many meters do you think she can walk along the street like that? The same thing happens with tourists in many countries around the world. In your home country, it usually wouldn't occur to you to go scuba diving, bungee jumping into an abyss, or ski at a ski resort for the first time. Therefore, you can be absolutely sure that foreign tourists in foreign countries are always potentially subject to and do experience more accidents, crimes, incidents than local residents. You are much more likely to be robbed, killed, raped, taken hostage, and so on down the list. And if you are already at a respectable age, then a heart attack or stroke will overtake you with a higher probability and faster after, for example, a multi-hour flight on an airplane. Then your relatives will rack their brains over how to transport your body back home to bury you. Or, at best, they will think about where to get money to pay for medical services if they are not covered by insurance. Countless such stories come to mind, when a harmless ride on a moped in an exotic country ends with a traumatic brain injury, ultimately involving the special services of your country and transporting you in a vegetative state to your homeland. Grief and misfortune for the whole family. I have even personally encountered such stories with some of my acquaintances, people from my social circle, not to mention the fact that such situations are often covered in the media, by various bloggers and charitable organizations. Someone may object, well, okay, in the end, shit happens, it happens at home, in your family walls, can happen at any time. A brick can fall on your head in the most unexpected place. And in your own country you can also get into a car accident, end up in the hospital. And now what, because of this, not fly anywhere, not travel, deny yourself entertainment, pleasure. This, of course, is a fair remark and I will not argue with it. And in your own country you can also sometimes find yourself at the wrong time in the wrong place. But still, in your own country, of which you are a citizen, if something bad happens, and you remain alive, then any problems and troubles are much easier to bear. For example, someone stole your bag with money and documents. Well, it is unpleasant, of course, you will be upset in any case. But you collect your thoughts, go to the internal affairs agencies, to the police, get a new passport in a week. Or you go to the bank, order a new bank card for yourself, and there are no problems. At home, you take out a reserve from your stash for a rainy day. It's unpleasant, of course, sad, but still, the problems are solvable, not fatal. And in a foreign country, if your bag with money, all your bank cards and documents is snatched from you on the street, then what do? That's it, in this distant country, in conditional Egypt, you become a subhuman, worse than the lowest local caste. Without documents, you are nobody, just a powerless monkey. Just a minute ago, you had plans about which pyramids to visit and which excursion to go on, and now that you have lost your passport, all your money, tickets and documents, you have only one question left: how can you get back home now, or at least get to the embassy of your country, which may be hundreds of kilometers from the place where your bag was stolen, or even, only in a neighboring country. I don't even remember all the coronavirus adventures, when planes don't fly at all, wars and revolutions that sometimes happen in exotic countries. Your tourist bus can be stopped on any road, under the barrels of Kalashnikovs you will give everything yourself and without any unnecessary talk. Or they will even shoot you somewhere in a gateway, like a dog. During a pandemic, planes can simply stop flying and you will be stupidly left without money and means of subsistence in a foreign country for an indefinite period. Incredible, you will say. No, very much so can happen. Even though you are a citizen of your country, you have a passport, all the documents, rights, but you simply cannot return there. And all such unpredictable cataclysms, of course, are better experienced in your home country, and not in a foreign one. If something happens at home, you know the laws, rules, how the healthcare system functions, relatives, family and close people are always nearby and can always come to the rescue in a critical situation. You know the doctors, speak the same language with them you will not be put in jail in another country, just because you, not knowing the local laws, took with you a few painkillers or cough tablets containing, for example, codeine, or opium substances in minimal concentration. Such a story, for example, happened in Georgia, when Israeli tourists were put in jail simply for having harmless medications in their medicine cabinets. In any other country, these cough medicines may be legal, but you did not take into account that you will be searched in transit countries. In a foreign country, this substance in medicines may be prohibited and for transporting it you will simply be detained right at the airport, put in a cage and sentenced to many years. Such stories have happened. A tourist from the Netherlands with several grams of marijuana, which is absolutely legal in his country, but prohibited everywhere, can easily be arrested in another country. Or they will take you as a hostage to exchange you for their criminals for political purposes. In other words, you can simply be taken hostage for political reasons, with something illegal planted in your belongings at the airport. And you will not be able to prove anything, just because you have arrived in a hostile state. You check in your luggage for storage and the airline sometimes transports it on a separate plane. Things can get lost, not arrive. Sometimes I do not understand at all who and for what reasons travels to backward and warring countries where civil wars are going on, political instability. For example, to northern Sudan, Nigeria, poor countries in Africa and Asia. For example, it is very dangerous for US citizens to fly to some hostile countries, which the embassy tries to report in a timely manner. And why would you fly to these backward and poor countries? Haven't you seen the poverty in your own country? You definitely want to indulge your vanity and go to a place where for $30 you can hire a prostitute and engage in debauchery, bribing any number of services. Ask yourself, do you want to feel financially superior to other people? This is pride and a great sin. There are even special bloggers who show their adventures in sex tourism, unfortunately, very popular. A kind of peculiar neo-colonialism, when a resident of Europe visits poor countries and is surprised at how cheap and accessible everything is for him there. Perhaps, in Africa you can buy and try exotic fruits, try special dishes, but by and large, if you want, you can buy all this in your own country, without physically moving anywhere. It is still very difficult for foreigners to find some authentic places where you can try something unique and real, dishes of national cuisine. What kind of exoticism are people looking for in all these countries? It is not clear. The exoticism of poverty, extreme poverty. After all, in reality, all rich people in any country in the world have been living more or less the same for a long time now. The lifestyle of a rich person in Africa and the USA, for example, is not very different. And the middle class too. And the color and exoticism remain only where people do not have money even to buy basic household items, things for life. Why does Mr. Beast do charity work? On the one hand, this is wonderful, commendable, it helps people in poor countries. But all this is done for show, and still a share of vanity, demonstrative servility in such humanitarian aid is always present. Perhaps, of the developed countries, only Japan and a few other countries have preserved some kind of national color. And that is due to the fact that historically they were closed off from the rest of the world for centuries. And in all other countries, due to globalization, everything has long been mixed up, culture, lifestyle, behavior. Everything is more or less the same. Why travel to a country that is almost no different from your own country? All people still point their fingers at the same Chinese smartphones, wear more or less the same clothes, eat more or less the same products. Even fast food restaurants are the same. Well, tell me, why should I, for example, go to some hypothetical Germany or Poland? For what kind of color? To try sausages with beer, but only with a different name? Well, in my country there are these same sausages. What is the point of traveling around Europe? Yes, if you have been fascinated by the history of ancient Rome all your life, for example, then you will probably want to see the Colosseum with your own eyes, to touch the architecture. But again, if you need it for work or for educational, cultural purposes. But as a tourist Philistine, as entertainment, it is very doubtful. To float on a gondola along the canals of Venice, you may experience some disappointment. Why be disappointed? You still will not be able to feel all the charm and subtleties of the history of this place as the natives. You can with the same success watch hundreds of detailed videos on the internet with travels in this place that interests you. Listen to professional art historians or just interesting bloggers. It is not necessary to fly across the globe to India, risk getting a thromboembolism on the plane and dying, to see the specifics of life of local people. Well, this is purely my personal opinion. I do not impose it on anyone. Virtual travels on YouTube are much more pleasant and informative. Of course, it is always interesting to see with your own eyes, through the prism of your own feelings, and not through the eyes of a blogger who has come there. But another person's view may be even more interesting than your own, narrow window of vision. If you put all the risks and sufferings on the scale with a certain originality of view and perception, then your personal perception will not always outweigh the benefits of watching travel videos. For example, exposure to local colorful food often ends in diarrhea, many-hour dates hugging the toilet in the hotel. In order to personally experience all the tastes and colors of the world, a whole life is not enough. Even an avid traveler will not be able to do this. The world is diverse and endless in knowledge. If popular travel bloggers at least earn money on their travels, then all the other people there only spend their hard-earned money, for the sake of impressions. Now it is very fashionable to say phrases, I collect impressions from around the world, or I invest in impressions. I collect impressions, spending all my free resources on this. Like, I am so highly spiritual and enlightened. You know, I personally communicated with such supposedly spiritual individuals, travelers. All their conversations boil down to the idea that they are so spiritual, so enlightened, who have experienced life. That they have been to such and such countries, tried such and such dishes, tried on such and such clothes. But in fact, no matter how much I tried, I didn't find any particular depth of personality in such people. Ordinary superficial Philistines who often don't read books, often aren't interested in anything except traveling itself. They value traveling as a process, as a kind of psychotherapy to hide their deep psychological traumas. I was surprised, but it turned out that there's nothing special to talk about with such people. Despite their assurances, they are far from philosophy, culture, art, or any special understanding of the world. We all think that people who travel a lot, who have been to dozens of countries, know something about people that everyone else doesn't. In fact, no. It's a paradox. A person can be much more spiritual and intellectually developed, never having traveled outside of their own country, than all these so-called enlightened Instagram gurus, who are full of photos on social networks from many exotic countries. What are you going there for? To learn what? Psychological comfort, or to amuse your vanity? To upload beautiful photos to Instagram and brag to your friends? What is the purpose of such trips? It's amazing. With sweat and blood, with their nerves, people earn money for a whole year to save up for a trip to some distant exotic country. And they call it a manifestation of their uniqueness and enlightenment. To risk their health, nerves, and even a small chance of burning during landing in a tin can called a passenger airliner. I do not want to instill any unnecessary phobias in you. I just want to draw your attention to the fact that reasonable people usually do not act like this. It is stupid to live on loans, mortgages and installment cards, to be on duty around the clock at work, to work essentially to the point of exhaustion, suffering all year round, in order to go on a vacation for 2 weeks and then afford yourself a parachute jump and scuba diving. I know people whose relatives died like this after scuba diving at one of the resorts. It is unreasonable for an unprepared person to suddenly start diving after a short briefing. And the same question constantly spins around: was it worth it? To exchange the most valuable thing, that is, to risk your life, for the sake of a momentary adrenaline rush? No, friends, reasonable people usually do not do this. Consider me boring, a bore, whatever. I have already traveled my share in childhood, in my youth. It is an uncomfortable feeling when you do not know the language that the locals speak. Even if you have learned the language of the country in which you are traveling, the locals will still laugh because of your accent. All the same, despite the ostentatious respect, culture, they will slightly consider you a second-class person, a little different from them. It is even hard for me to imagine how hard it is for an emigrant in a foreign country. But at least this has in itself a certain meaning: a person goes for a better life, but forgets about spiritual values, the feeling of his homeland and his country. I once in another video gave an example of the famous Spanish tennis player Rafael Nadal, who said that from the point of view of paying taxes, benefits, he should have changed his citizenship long ago. But the value of communicating with his family and friends in his native language, without any accent, the value of Spain itself for him is higher than double or triple material benefits. Unfortunately, we often do not take these values into account, do not understand what our country really gives us. And these are not pompous words. The value of coming, for example, to a cafe or a store and talking to a saleswoman in your native language, joking in this language, understanding the joke of the interlocutor in response. The language barrier is not a minor obstacle, as it may mistakenly seem at first glance. It is a significant part of our life, our mental health. When you felt like a full-fledged person, and suddenly after emigration or on a tourist trip you start to feel like a kind of outcast among normal people. Agree, this is a blow to mental balance. The stress of getting into a foreign language environment usually causes discomfort, to put it mildly, in a normal person. Of course, there are characters, often of a psychopathic nature, who enjoy such stress. They like to change the environment, constant surprises, a change of scenery. Constantly traveling drug addicts, like those same travel bloggers, who can no longer live without a permanent nomadic lifestyle, habit. But for them, I repeat, at least it is a job. They earn money from it. And for the rest, the image of a successful nomad, a traveler imposed by marketing, getting to know a foreign culture. Impressions. I repeat, coming to some country for 2 to 3 weeks, you will never understand and fully feel any foreign culture, any deep meanings of this people. It is simply impossible. You will not become more intellectual or enlightened. You will simply physically live for several days or weeks in another country, and that's it. Attributing some special status of an opinion leader and expert on life to travelers is stupid and wrong. When I watch how some foreign traveler, coming to Belarus, for example to the city of Minsk, begins to judge how inconveniently something is arranged here, that there are few establishments or cafes he needs, you understand that this person does not understand and does not feel the way of life that people lead in this country. A tourist is so far from understanding the traditions and culture that has been formed over centuries that it is difficult for him to be some kind of expert or opinion leader, much less some kind of moral tuning fork. It is impossible. We board a plane and fly thousands and tens of thousands of kilometers to feel the joy of life, although the same feeling can be obtained in a neighboring city in your own country or in a village. This pleasure and this happiness are no less bright and no less meaningful. The pleasure of eating a croissant in Paris near the Eiffel Tower is as bright and rich as eating the same croissant in a café with a view, for example, of your local landmark. The Eiffel Tower is overrated in our eyes. We ourselves have endowed this object with a certain romanticism and sophistication. In fact, it is an ordinary engineering structure, of which there are very, very many in the same Europe. When you buy a plane ticket and try to cross someone's borders, you seem to stop being a citizen and a respected person for a while, you lose all your freedoms and you are left with only responsibilities, duties to carry out someone's orders and instructions. You are searched at the airport, interrogated, they rummage through your things. Customs officers can literally rummage through your dirty laundry in your bag with gloves on. They can force you to check in your most valuable things, and then you can only pray whether your things will fly with you or get lost somewhere. They may not let you into the country you are going to at all, and they all have the right to do so. Your expenses, your nerves, your financial losses also do not concern anyone. You are a nobody. You are not a person, but an ordinary foreign tourist, whom many airport employees and local residents may treat with disdain. Nobody invited you here and nobody needs you here. They only need your money. Almost all customs services in the world act and reason this way or something like that. All these stresses, adventures, new adventures. If you enjoy it, then please travel, take risks, accumulate, as they say now, impressions. So that in old age you will have something to remember. In fact, in old age we often face encephalopathy and complete indifference to memories. But this truth does not fit into the orderly marketing of travel agencies. Accumulate impressions, last-minute tours are waiting for you. These are my thoughts, friends. There is something to think about. Thank you for your attention, and until we meet again.